Here's what I will say. I kind of like that the plasticky taste that the McDonald's cup imprints on the ice.
That's what I'm talking. It's all part of it.
Yeah.
And you don't get that if you don't drink that last bit.
Right. I like to drink that last little bit and chomp the ice and like taste that plastic from the inside of the McDonald's
It's delicious.
cup. Yeah.
Now see, you're one of us. You're one of us.
Yeah. I just misunderstood you. So hopefully people keep listening and they can.
Well, no, you partially misunderstood me. I am still discussing. I like the watery soda mixture. I like that part. No, that's
fine because if there's ice there that you're chomping on too, it's just kind of part of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, all right, we can stop recording.
Wake up, everybody. Today is July 2nd. We are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch Palashti, joined by my co-host, Jason Wright. If you decide you like us, which clearly only 28 of you do, and 14 of those are family members, but I digress. You can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and I just want to give a big shout out to our lovely NFers who are returning to listen to this episode. I also wanted to say, Karch, that I have a little beef with you from last week.
Go on.
So, you know, when we have questions, like listener questions that come in, we write our answers in this shared document. But you, last week, you read ahead of what I was saying, and you read my joke, and you laughed at my joke before I said it. And I decided that I didn't appreciate that. So, just wanted to air our dirty laundry.
Get your own doc.
I'm thinking about it.
You should. Get your own podcast while we're at it.
I might.
Now you guys get 2 podcasts for the price of 1.
Ooh, which is free. So that's a good deal.
Infinite increase in value?
Yeah.
That's how that works.
That's how math works.
That's how
we
it
are
works.
Mathcast.
Yep.
All right. What have you been up to, my friend?
Nothing. I'm off tomorrow. We're both off tomorrow. 4th of July observation.
Showcast!
I'll be staring out into the abyss all Friday, looking forward to Saturday. I assume that's what that means.
What are you doing? Oh, because you're observing, yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
I'm not doing anything, though. I'm just going to be at home. We'll go into the driveway on Saturday and listen/look for fireworks. Normally, we'd be able to see them because other people would be doing them, but everywhere around us is like really tall cypress trees, and so it's really hard to see them. So unless you're not
going to shoot any off?
No, we don't buy any, and like we're big scaredy cats, and I'd probably blow my hand off, and they don't like the noises. Juliet's,
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I used to love fireworks. I don't really like them anymore.
Yeah, it's just fine.
It's a process.
Once every 3 years or so, I don't mind, but like I don't do it every year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, we'll get some sparklers for Luke and stuff like that, but you have to get that little tube, and then you gotta untangle the fuse, and then you gotta drop the thing down in there, and then you can only light them off one at a time. These things come in like a 20-pack. There's 3 minutes in between each, so you're talking like an hour of just mostly waiting for something to blow up. And only very short bursts, obviously, of actual pretty sparkle things. So
right. Maybe I'll ask Dave if he has any extra from Pyro Junkie. And
oh,
yeah. All right. Some housekeeping. My Final Fantasy IX Finally Plays Part 2 is up, so go watch that. For Part 3, I finally caved, and I got the Steam version of Final Fantasy IX, so I can run the cool, pretty mods on it. That was a process, and then I got to catch up to where I am, but I should have an episode out by... I'm going to do Wednesdays. I think Wednesday worked a lot better, so I'll be releasing those weekly, at minimum, on Wednesdays, hopefully for a longer episode this time, and then all episodes going forward as well.
Sweet. Mm-hmm. Well, likewise, Greg and I recorded episode 4 of NFTP Debates. This week's topic was PSVR a success? It is an interesting thing to think about because I could really see it going either way. And then even in the Reddit thread where we posted the video, there was a lot of you would think on the PSVR sub there would be a lot of diehards, but there were a lot of people in there that didn't necessarily classify TSVR as a success. So go check that episode out. It's up on our YouTube channel.
Yep.
And while you're there, like all of our videos, subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter. And Sean, make these social media accounts and follow us and like us and sub to us.
You got to do something while you're driving across the country.
That's your homework.
While you're driving.
Well, yeah, exactly. Oh, and one last thing to note on housekeeping. Greg made us start putting our faces on the thumbnails because he has this weird idea about like if our thumbnails, if YouTube's giving us impressions, meaning that they're showing our thumbnail to people, and people see our faces enough recurring that maybe they'll be like, oh, I recognize that person for the fifth time. Maybe I'll check this video out. But I still refuse to do a reaction face. So
you kind of did one already.
No, that was not a reaction face.
All right. Agree to disagree.
Okay.
I'm going to do them because you hate them, and I thrive off of contrariness. So
I'll still Photoshop them for you, but I won't be happy about it.
Thank you. All right, so we actually got some things wrong last week. So, Jason, why don't you walk us through our corrections?
Oh, man, this is the first week that I actually have to add the corrections music myself because Greg stopped doing the music in post. We changed our workflow up. So anyways, Jason, go ahead and start correction music now. Okay, so basically, first, number one correction, everything we said about geography last week was wrong. No specific corrections except disregard Skinland. That is a country Karch accidentally made up. But I'm starting to think we might be onto something there.
I agree.
Maybe a website idea.
No, I don't agree anymore. Vehemently disagree.
This is something you have as a maybe correction about the Schindler's List comment. We may have overblown our reaction a little bit, but neither of us really did like deep searching on that. I think that's something that kind of snuck into the news last week, or however it did. Like it's something we forgot to take out, but whatever. So we gave hot takes of like just the headline. And then lastly, this is our only real correction. The difficulty settings in The Last of Us, there actually are separate adjustments for the player health, the enemy health and difficulty, the allies' health and how helpful they are, how easy it is to stealth, and how easy it is to find resources. And they each have an independent slider or like a global slider. So you can kind of fine-tune the pieces of it that you don't necessarily care for. Like if you want to stealth more, you can turn the difficulty of stealth down, but you don't mind the enemies being a little bit harder if you are discovered. You can kind of tweak your experience that way. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool, except for I still just use the master slider. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's all the corrections we have. Jason, stop corrections music.
Thanks, Jason. All right, let's get into some news. Top of the docket is a birthday announcement. Diablo 2.
Woo!
Turns 20 this week. It was Tuesday? Maybe Monday? I don't remember. It was this week. So, we love that game. And we'll be talking about it some more later in honor of it. So happy birthday, Diablo 2.
The big 2-0. You can almost drink.
Almost. One more year.
Woo.
Not even death can save you from alcoholism. I got nothing. PlayStation courts indies once again. A blog post from Shuhei Yoshida, who is currently head of PlayStation Indies at Sony Interactive Entertainment. He used to be an actual president. Now he's just, president of Indies. Sounds like a demotion, but they're going to be adding one indie a month to the PlayStation Now service. So going into the PlayStation 5, they're probably recognizing that they're going to have a smaller, offering as far as like what they can give on their various services like PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus. So they're going to go ahead and ramp up showcasing and highlighting indies again until it doesn't suit their purposes anymore, and they'll dump them like yesterday's news. Yeah,
that's what kind of makes this come off as disingenuous to me, because I remember them having this same ramp up at the beginning of the PS4 era, and how they really wanted to be the platform where indies could come and thrive, and it was for the same purpose. So It'll be interesting to see. I mean, of course, I would assume if you're an indie developer, like this kind of thing is like a wave you want to ride. So I can't imagine anybody turning them down on their offer to be added to the PlayStation Now service or whatever. It's just kind of, like I said, it seems disingenuous, and it's not gonna be like a lasting thing. So,
yeah, I mean, Shuhei Yoshida was, like I said, he was president of something else, not just indies, but maybe all of Sony. I really don't remember. He had a different position at the beginning of the PlayStation 4, and it's possible that indies was a passion for him back then, and that now he's just heading up indies. He's wanting once again to like kind of push those to the limelight, and now is a good time to do that. Not that indies don't have a good time on PS4. They do well, just not Switch well. Which again, Switch did the same thing. It's like, we don't have anything, so come on, indies, come on over. It's portable. But it's great.
Don't they still do the Nindy showcases though?
They do. No, yeah, they've continued. So I mean,
that's lasted. The support has lasted.
Yeah, for sure. So 9 games were announced though that morning. For some of them exclusive, some of them not. I didn't catch them all, but those games are Fist, Forged in Shadow Torch, terrible name. Maquette, Where the Heart Is. Creeks, Heavenly Bodies, Recompile, Carto, Haven, and Worms Rumble. So,
I gotta tell you, that says Worms Rubble.
Oh, maybe it was Rubble. Was it Rumble?
I don't know.
Or Rubble?
It makes me uncomfortable either way, as does Heavenly Bodies and Fist. I don't like any of that. And also the fact that Fist is an acronym, it's making me uncomfortable. Anyway, we can move on. I don't want to talk about it.
So the initial announcement for this indie push was in a blog post, which PlayStation utilizes quite often. So that's not unusual. But what was unusual is that none of these games were announced in that blog post. They then each received their own separate post. And then, of course, they had YouTube videos to accompany them, trailers, and sometimes gameplay, depending on the game, throughout the rest of the day with no rhyme or reason to it. It was a very bizarre way to announce them, and I don't know why they did that. They should have just cobbled them together somehow, even if it was just in the blog post. Here they are in the blog post. I don't know. It was bizarre. Maybe they wanted to give them their time to shine, because they took like the whole afternoon, like or the morning and the afternoon. They just kept popping up one by one slowly.
So are these the ones they're adding every month?
That I do not know. That is a good question.
Yeah, because I was a little unclear too. But
yeah, the first two, I think, Fist and Maquette, are the PlayStation exclusives. The rest are coming to some combination of other platforms, even if it's just PC as well. But some are coming to all of them, like Switch, etc. But yeah, so indies are coming back to PlayStation. I love me some indies, so I'll be on the lookout. None of those really caught my eye like the Day of the Devs presentation, which I found out will not be the last one. They'll be doing something similar like in the next month or so I can't wait to see more of that, because they picked a lot of really good games to showcase in that. So
interesting, because they named it Day of the Devs, which is singular.
All right, well, maybe I misheard, or maybe they're dumb.
No, I mean, I'm sure you're right, but they should have named it Days of the Devs.
Maybe they'll call it something else.
Okay.
Yeah. Next up, Xbox Series X Game Showcase set for July 20th. So, interesting they call it a game showcase, but basically this is going to be similar to what Sony did a couple weeks back for their PS5 announcement. While it did technically showcase the console and the other digital-only SKU, it was mostly just a game showcase event where they showed off a bunch of stuff.
Their first-party showcase, essentially. Right. Do you think we'll get price or release date here?
I really don't. I'm saying no. I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do it at their event. Knowing that Sony
will
didn't.
It's like you said, Sony and Microsoft are playing like the world's most dangerous game of chicken, and
they got time. You know? like what's it going to change if they do it in August or September?
Or, November for that matter. Coming out tomorrow.
Exactly. Here's what's going to happen.
They have to give time to allow pre-orders is the thing.
Good point. However, I don't think they're concerned with pre-orders, because these things just typically sell out anyway. The clout of both of these companies, and Nintendo as well, now that the Switch is cool again, or the Switch has made Nintendo cool again, like pre-orders and the first initial run, that's gonna sell through. There's no concerns with that. Now, they might want those metrics, and they might have to do something for retailers who are shipping the units for them. But I think they're going to wait as long as possible, and we might find this out. I mean, we've already had rumors, obviously, but we might get hard confirmed leaks before they even eventually get around to it because they've waited so long.
Well, there's nothing I like more than hard leaks.
Exactly. Do you think it's going to be just first-party stuff? Because they showed a lot of third-party stuff at that Inside Xbox a couple months ago, which was kind of like underwhelming, but at the same time, there was, some fairly high-profile stuff in there. Or do you think it's all going to be first-party?
Well, on the article I pulled, which is from videogameschronicle.com, so I don't know how trustworthy this is, but it's an article by Andy Robinson, and it calls it in here, Microsoft will hold its Xbox Series X first-party game showcase the week of July 20th. That's according to this information shared by journalist Jeff Grubb, corroborated by Video Games Chronicle's own sources, confirmed that the event is planned for July 23rd, is what they're saying. So it says primarily focus on games coming from Xbox Studios, but will also confirm additional titles coming from third-party publishers. So that's kind of what we know, high level at least. So I would imagine you'd get a mix, but mostly focused on first-party stuff.
You think they're going to be seeing anything cool aside from Halo?
Yeah. Oh, geez. There was I'm trying to remember the specific developer that they said that they had something in the works for a while. I cannot remember.
No, they shut them down. The Fable people.
No, yeah, it wasn't them. But yeah, I think we'll see something. I think we'll see something that'll catch us off. And especially with, I think it was Phil Spencer was interviewed on his reaction to the PS5 reveal event. And he basically, and of course you've got to play this game. It's a PR thing, right? But he was basically like, yeah, given what we saw with PlayStation 5, like I'm feeling pretty comfortable and confident about what we have in store. So
I hope so.
I think there will be some surprises. I just couldn't fathom what those would be.
Yep. All right. So we look forward to that. That's like less than 3 weeks away. So that'll be fun. Speaking of events, Devolver Digital, publisher Devolver Digital, will have an event of their own on July 11th. Huge fan of the games that they often pick to produce. And so I'm always interested in something they're doing. They also put together the craziest like scripted events. The last 3 E3s were just bonkers. Did you ever watch any of them?
No, but I heard about them, and I'm excited to see what they have in store for this year, because I actually am going to watch it this year.
You need to. It's a story. Like there's a narrative to it. It's not it's like not a deep narrative, but like there's a character, Nina something or other. She's like this fake executive at Devolver, and she goes through like she's just like this heinously, corporate lady, but then at some point she gets like killed, but then she gets brought back as like an android. I'm not really sure anymore because it's been a while, but you should watch them if you can at some point. Not all at once because it's pretty long if you string them together, but they're out there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fun.
That's cool. And I'm looking at the games they've published, and this, I gotta say, I love a lot of these games. Hotline Miami.
Yes, you do.
Minute, I heard was good. I never played it. My friend Pedro was pretty cool. Enter the Gungeon. I know a lot of people love that game. And then the Messenger, like, very, very cool.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess, and I kind of knew that, but when you look at them all together, and Katana Zero, that's a full boyfriend.
Did they
Fantastic.
Really? That's fun.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where you're like, you in the back of your head, that's a Devolver game, but then when you look at this list, you're like, wow.
Yeah. So I can't wait for that. Can't wait. And I don't have to because it's on the 11th, which is just like a week away, give or take.
Very cool.
All right. Last but certainly not least is our meatiest news item, and this dropped kind of late today. Looks like next-gen games are going to be $70.
Or will they?
Jason, take it away.
Prepare your wallets, ladies and gentlemen, because next-gen is coming for your hard-earned cash. That would actually have been a good idea, like a good point at which to go into a quote from an article, but I don't have one. I'll just give you the highlights. So basically today, 2K announced their pricing model for their NBA 2K, their annualized basketball game, NBA 2K 21, I guess it would be. So here's the deal with it. It's really interesting and frustrating the way that they're going about this. So basically, if you want to buy NBA 2K21 for the PlayStation 4, it's going to be normal price, $60 for the base edition. But unlike other cross-generational titles that we've seen up to this point, namely like Madden, you do not get the PlayStation 5 version with your copy of the PlayStation 4 version. It will not cross over. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X version of the game will be $70 and launch with the console holiday 2020.
Yeah, this is the exact opposite of literally almost everything we've heard about what's it going to be like buying a game that's cross-gen. It's the exact. Not only do you not get the other version, or maybe you can buy a $10 upgrade. I don't know.
Nope.
No.
I think it's $70. I did not hear anything about an upgrade.
I mean, you wouldn't get but still, okay. Even if that, like, that's the best. Now it's best case scenario because we know the other one's gonna be $70. We know they're quote unquote different, even though they're not really. I can't. I can't.
And here's the kicker. If you get the quote unquote Black Mamba Forever edition, which features Kobe Bryant on the cover, and I think I don't know if it comes with any physical anything, maybe just cosmetics in the game itself. I'm not really sure. It's $99. Then you get both copies of the game, PS4 and PS5.
So what should be a $10 upgrade is actually a $20 upgrade. No, a $40 upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I don't think there's going to be a $10 upgrade, because they want to entice people to go for this $99 edition.
Everyone, I beg you. I don't like basketball. I don't like sports games in general. It's a booming industry, and I understand why people play them, but please do not buy this game. If assuming the whole industry hasn't already made the same decision and we just don't know it yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't know it. These guys are the first ones to come out and say, this is what the price is. It's interesting because if you look at what EA did with Madden, they said, we're going to allow you to upgrade to next gen, but only through March of 2021, which falls short of when the next version of the game would come out. And there was a massive backlash online, and then they kind of quietly said, okay, we'll let it go out to July, which is when the next year's game would come out. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how 2K handles, because there's going to be backlash on this.
But meaningful backlash?
I don't know.
Substantive?
Is there ever meaningful backlash in video games?
Yes.
When?
The beginning of the decline, not the end by any stretch of the imagination, but the beginning of the decline of loot boxes with Battlefront 2. That's was a good point. Such a destructive debacle at such a high level of like industry, like as in Disney, like got involved to a very small degree. It started shaking making the waves as far as people, governments getting involved. It's like, is this gambling? I don't even know what a loot box is. It just shows you how long it can take, because finally certain legislative bodies in like the UK are deeming it gambling. I don't know what that means for like anything that they're going to pass as far as like restrictions and censorship, etc.
I think the ESRB just added some choice words onto like their label, basically.
Yeah, and that took a while too, and that doesn't apply to anything after the fact, which is a sneaky new tactic that people are putting in, like, oh yeah, there's no microtransactions until later.
Right, exactly.
They did it with Crash Team Racing. Everyone was like, oh, this is great. And it is. It's a good game by all, accounts. I didn't play it, but everyone was really happy with it until, like, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks later, like, oh, yeah, well.
After the reviews came out.
Oh, yeah, way after, too. Yeah. So, like, they couldn't even warn you, that kind of stuff.
Well, and speaking of microtransactions and tying it back in with this $70 price point for NBA 2K 2021, this is what is so frustrating to me, because like you hear both sides of this debate, and it's like, well, gaming costs so much more to develop, and it's hard, it's resource consuming, and you have to have the money up front before you make it back, and blah blah blah. I'm just like, I have a really hard time feeling bad for these AAA studios and these publishers, because Activision made $3.3 billion in microtransactions in 2019, and that represented over half of its total yearly revenue. So let's put this in perspective. Add $10. Let's see, how many copies do you think like 2K sells every year? I mean, maybe 10, 20 million copies?
Maybe. I'm bad at that kind of stuff.
Okay, so let's say you add $10 to each of those copies. Let's say it's 20. Let's say it's 20 million copies. You're only talking $200 million extra dollars, and I know that's not like an insignificant amount of money, but compare that to what you know they're going to make in microtransactions, and it bewilders me. Like,
they don't even see all of that 100 million anyway.
Right.
Microtransactions, exactly. They do lose a cut of that to the platform holder too, but not as big a cut as they do on the game itself, especially a physical game. A physical game they lose a lot on. And
that's the other thing, is that where you maybe see the scope creep of some of these really ambitious projects that obviously do take the time and resources to develop, like Cyberpunk 2077. But at the same time, this doesn't all happen in a vacuum. Digital distribution has cut costs to get these games to market, and you can't discount that. I mean, we're moving more and more toward a 100% digital ecosystem where people then you're not paying these distributors and these warehouses and these holding costs and these stores, and everybody's not taking their cut. So you've got that, and these tools are getting more efficient to develop these games, like if you saw with Unreal Engine 5. So it just drives me crazy that everybody just pretends like we are on the cliff of the $60 price point, and it can no longer exist. And I refuse to believe it,
because subscription models throw that right out the window. Subscription models at sometimes $5 a month for the entire catalog of Xbox first-party games, plus whatever they were able to wrangle for third-party, which is a lot. It's insane how much of a deal that is. And I'm not saying everyone needs to do a subscription, but this conversation is not that black and white. And it's a lot more
really
black than it is white, if you know what I mean. Like,
and the thing, I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is, like, these guys want to make more money. Of course they do.
And I want to spend less money, so I don't care how much money they want to make. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane.
Eat the rich.
That's perfect.
All right. So we'll be keeping our eyes open and our wallets closed. Fight the power.
Yes. Yeah, we will.
Unless, it's Zelda, and then it's like, please take all my money.
Right. I mean, I would pay $60 for that game again.
There are exceptions to everything, because everyone has their own value, and there's going to be a lot of people here who decide that, yep, that's fine. Some people will drop off, some kids' parents or some poor, 20-something-year-olds like, I just can't swing that because my paycheck didn't go up that same amount,
Sure.
Like, or the parents are like, no, I'm drawing the line. $10 more, whatever, for whatever reason, whether that's good or bad,
Yeah, and to me, it's not a cost thing; it's a principle thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because I just disagree, and I reject the basis of their argument.
Agreed. Not that they're making an argument. Like, Activision's just doing this. They're not saying
2K.
Why. They're just gonna start chart.
Not Activision.
Oh, sorry.
Take-Two owns 2K. Sorry.
Yes, you're right.
Saving us from corrections, that's all.
Yep. They'll be right behind him, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Right behind him.
Diablo 4.
So that's the news. Stew on that. Save your money up, because the consoles they're not going to be cheap either. Like, the longer it takes for them, and the more rumors we hear, like, $600 easy. Like, I will not be surprised if I see a $600 console.
I don't think I want to buy a console at launch that's $600, because I just know that it's going to turn around and get iterated on in either the slim version or the pro version within 2 years. So I don't know.
2 sounds a little fast, but I hear you. I'm more worried about dropping quite that much on a box where this was the first generation in a long time where none of the big three had, like, any major physical defaults. A couple controller problems, both on PlayStation side and on the Switch side. I don't think Xbox had any problems, at least no widespread issues. But before that, they were all bricking for stupid reasons, and I don't want to go through that. Not that I wouldn't get like a warranty to be safe within like the 2 years kind of time frame, but it's a mess, and they're gonna try to not pay out on it and all that kind of stuff. But it's funny to me that some people don't balk at $70 a game, which is going to add up quick. But then like $600, that's taboo. I'm like, okay, because why? Like, what's the difference? I mean,
that's a really good point.
It makes more sense for a console, honestly, than it does the game.
Well, I mean, especially at launch, because you have things like non-recurring engineering costs that you have to recoup that once you have, then you can talk about price drop. So
exactly.
I get that, but I don't know.
All right. Well, that's the news. Stew on that. And we won't bring it up again. Maybe.
Oh, I will.
Oh, me too.
Not today, but I will.
Oh, I might do it today. We'll see. My jimmies, they're rustled.
I'm livid.
I'm livid. You were already mad too.
I was already mad, and I won't talk about why, but I was.
What we will talk about is what we wish we were playing. We here at Never Free to Play are never free to play, and there's games out there that that catch our eye and just make us sad that we don't have more time to play video games. So we're going to talk about that now and get it out of the system, so we don't spend money on that summer Steam sale, and we don't waste time playing something we've already played before. So, Jason, what do you wish you were playing?
Well, let me tell you, I did waste money on that summer Steam sale. And what I bought was Borderlands 3, and I got it for under $30, so I thought it was a pretty good deal.
That's less than a year old, right?
Don't make me think like that. I don't know. It's not.
You keep
that
talking.
old.
I'll look it up for you.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, So this is kind of a bridge because I did play some Borderlands 3. What I wish I was playing was more Borderlands 3. Like, I almost had more fun. This is going to sound so bad, but I almost had more fun than I've had playing The Last of Us 2.
Why does that sound bad?
Well, because
it's okay to like Borderlands 3 more than The Last of Us 2.
I don't know that that's true. I just had more fun with it in the short amount of time that I spent with each, but I think a lot of it has to do with like tone. Like, I'm so bummed out about everything right now that The Last of Us 2 is really not doing anything to distract me from it. And Borderlands 3, I was just like this super fun, happy-go-lucky, like everything's ridiculous, everything's over the top, and essentially Diablo with guns. It's what I wanted Borderlands 2 to be, but I was so late to the party that Borderlands 2 just didn't feel like it held up. And it's what I wanted Destiny to be, but Destiny was too much of an MMO. This is like so far, and I don't want to speak too soon, but it's like a more fun version of, I don't want to say that because there really aren't any stealth elements, but it's like an arcadey version of Far Cry 5. And I'm having a lot of fun with it.
A loot base too, because they don't have like loot, right? They've got guns and equipment, but like you don't have stats and stuff.
Oh, in Far Cry?
Right.
Yeah, you can't. Well, very, very light RPG elements with, like, once you pick up a gun,
wouldn't even call them that.
What?
I wouldn't even call them that at that point, like.
Yeah. Okay, so just very, very light upgrade system, if you want to call it that. But basically, in Far Cry 5, once you pick up a weapon, that gets added to like your loadouts, and then you can go anytime you're in town and change your loadouts, and then you get money from doing missions and whatnot, and so you can upgrade components of your weapon by like adding a scope or adding a stock to help stabilize so you can aim better, or adding a silencer. And there are little stats kind of like that, but in this game so far, it's very loot based, where it's like, I don't know if there's a way to upgrade guns, but it's like there's so many weapons, and it's more like Diablo in that you can kind of find two of the same gun, but they have different stats. Mm-hmm. And I love Diablo 2 so much, and this is so scratching that itch of trying to, because the skill tree is pretty in depth too, and there are classes, and so like I picked kind of more of a summoner for Borderlands 3, and it's so fun. And you to align your skill set with your weapons and min max all like the skill, the attributes of your weapon to like, oh, I need this particular attribute to be better because for this skill or whatever. So I just love that kind of thing of like creating a build, so to speak, and like fine tuning that. I'm sure you get a lot of that in games like Monster Hunter.
No, not really.
Really?
Yeah.
I always thought, and we don't have to go into that, I always thought that you were kind of like chasing better gear in that game.
It's a very... On paper, yes. On paper, it's the same idea, and there's a grind, and there's a loop, and there's gear, but it's a totally different beast. Like, they are the same, and in the same breath, they're nothing alike. It's hard to describe.
Well, I am really loving the gameplay loop in Borderlands 3. And in terms of like the gameplay, like the movement feels tight. I like the vehicles. The shooting feels really good. I like the art style. I still dig it. I think cell shading holds up. It's really pretty. Some of the dialogue's a little bit annoying. None of these are like fresh takes. These are all things I heard, but I really had no basis to agree or disagree. But I agree. Some of the dialogue comes off as like super cheesy, but at the same time, it adds to the wackiness. And so it's wacky, it's lighthearted, and it's taking my mind off of everything. And
yeah.
You play it with friends, sorry, one more thing I have to mention about it. The co-op campaign aspect of it. It's hard to find a good co-op campaign that has a functional multiplayer. It is hard. There's a handful.
There's not a lot of them that try it, and the ones that do probably just don't do it well.
And the way this one works, where all of your like, depending on whose game you join, that's the person whose progression you're working toward, but all the experience and loot that you get while you're in that person's game stays with your character. So I really, really like that concept, and I do think that's the best way to handle it. Anyway, that's all I'll say. I kind of tied two segments together there. But what do you wish you were playing, Karch?
I wish I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake again.
Really?
I do. I watched a retrospective YouTuber named Clemps, Clemps. If you like JRPGs and a goofy dude with a British accent, go check his videos out. They're very funny. He just does kind of like... long form isn't quite the right term, but they're more than 10 minutes. He just, gives his thoughts in retrospectives on games. Medium form, exactly. And he did one for the game, just kind of in general with a mostly combat focus. And then he did a story one too. And he lined up a lot for probably the most out of anybody, lined up with my thoughts the most. And I felt like this after I finished it, but I wasn't going to dive right back in. It was like, I think I like this game more than I feel in this moment because of all the stuff they throw at you at the end. And it just a couple other annoyances throughout gameplay wise. But I feel like if I played it again, I could really see the good for what it is. And then kind of just be like, okay, the bad stuff's like whatever. But I don't know. I want to play it before the end of the year. Just do a quicker
You just think
run.
about that section of the game that I think you said was right before Wall Market, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. Just you think about that. You think long and hard about how long you have to run around.
I know that though, and I'll be better at the game, and I can skip the cutscenes that don't matter and I don't care about, and it'll be like a breeze.
You make me sad.
Why?
Why? Because we fundamentally disagree on replaying games.
I know. I don't understand how you can't want to ever replay a game.
Topic of the show next week. I'm writing that at the bottom.
Replaying games. That's a great one. I love it. So yeah, that's what I want to play. I want to play Final Fantasy VII Remake because I can. And I've bought it, and I should. Plus, there's other content that if I want to, I can get to the bonus stuff that I didn't bother with this time.
Okay, so that's how you wish you were wasting your time, but what did you actually play?
I played a lot of stuff. So I'm going to start with this. I gave up on Xenoblade. I put it down. I deleted it off my thing. I tweeted it out.
Golf clap.
Stop!
I'm proud of you.
Stop saying that because you're proud of me for the wrong reasons.
Well, no. I'm proud of you that you recognized that you weren't having fun with it, and so you made a life choice that improved your mental state. Because why waste your time playing something that you're not enjoying just to say you finished it?
Not just to say I finished it, but to see things to the end. I like a game. in many ways, not always, but in many ways, a game isn't complete if you don't get to the end. It depends on the game, and it depends. But with such a story-heavy one, sometimes, like, you do have to get there. But the story was fine, and I had reached, like, the 25-ish hour mark, and knowing that, like, even the quick runs, I was looking at another 25 to 30 hours. The gameplay is just not... It's too much like Xenoblade 2. There's a lot of systems that are very different that I enjoy more than Xenoblade 2, but overall, they're very similar games in the way that combat's done. It's not turn-based, and that, like, I'm finding that I just don't like JRPGs that are not turn-based. Like, I don't want some sort of pseudo-action combat thing. I want actual action combat, or I want take my turn kind of combat.
So where would you classify Final Fantasy VII Remake then? That's action combat? Because it's kind of...
It leans far enough over into action combat, I think. Even though you're stopping battle a lot to make decisions, you're doing so at such a quick pace, and you're hopping between your characters at such a quick pace, and you're still moving around and dodging and blocking and smashing the attack button, that I think that it is still high, fast pace enough to call it action combat. But it is definitely a very interesting and refreshing take that translates, the original game very well. But we've talked about that before.
So then, wait, contrast that with Xenoblade's combat, like Reader's Digest. How is it
Xenoblade's
different?
a lot more like is almost to a T an MMO. You have a skill bar, essentially, and your character auto attacks, as long as they're within range, and then you're not actively using a skill, and then the skills have cooldowns, and they do things depending on situations, and there's just too many skills. So Xenoblade suffers from a trend in the JRPG landscape that's been going on for a while now, that some really, really lean into, and this one does, that I just do not jive with, and there's just too many systems. There's too many systems. It's stupid how many systems there are. And by systems, I don't just mean, like, gameplay mechanics. I mean it's all gameplay mechanics, but not just battle mechanics. Like, there's, like, this affinity system with how much your characters like each other, which is fine, but it's not just the characters in your party. It's the characters in your party with random NPCs in towns. It's random NPCs in towns with other NPCs. Exactly.
Wow. Ouch. Because I was thinking more like Fire Emblem, where it's like, oh, do these guys like each other? Make them stand next to each other in battle, and you get like a +1.
It should stop there, because it has that. It has that, and it encourages you to swap your parties, because you gain more affection towards each other if they're in a party together, and it kind of encourages you to swap them out, which is always a very difficult thing to do in these kinds of games. Like, how do you get people to move outside their comfort zone? Well, we'll reward them with cool cutscenes and conversations. Neat. But it goes so far beyond that. And the skill trees are... It's rewarding if you like that kind of stuff. And I do up to a point, and this game just... There's a line and they crossed it, It's just a smidge too long. And by smidge, I mean a lot. It's just a smidge too dull combat-wise. It's just a smidge too complicated. It's just a smidge too JRPG, like a little too cliche. I still would I'll probably like watch a Let's Play or something. There's a lot of people out there that I like who have done this game before, and are currently doing it now that the remake's out. So I just might pick up where I left off. But yeah, I'm done with it. It sucks because I spent, full price on it, but I don't make that mistake that often and not like a game, so it happens.
Are you going to count this toward your JRPG a month total?
I am strongly considering not doing that. There's a couple on my list that I wanted to play that I will still play. Like, I'm going to pick up Nier Automata at some point when I have some, PS4 downtime. Like, not obviously while I'm doing Last of Us Part 2, but I will play that and maybe like one or two others that I had my eye on. But it's July and I've only done 4. I'm not going to like rush to try to squeeze these in. And there's other games that are not JRPGs that I definitely want to play by the end of the year, like Ghost and at least a large chunk of Cyberpunk. I got to finish The Last of Us Part 2. I say I want to. I haven't.
No, yeah. I'm with you.
We're not a news outlet. We have no actual deadlines. We don't review games.
We're never free to play.
Never free to play. And I got Harvest Moon coming out. That's not a JRPG.
I think Nier might be on Game Pass, but it may only be console, so you just look into that.
It is, because the PC version is a kind of a mess, and I don't think it's capable of like being... Yeah, it's a mess. But it's cheap. Okay. It's not expensive, so it's not a big deal.
Right. So then tell me, so that's what you haven't been playing and what you wish you were playing. What have you actually been playing?
So with that gone, and I can only play The Last of Us 2 in like bursts in certain parts of the week because it's a game it uses the TV in the bedroom, and that's our time, it's our TV, so I try not to hug it.
And you also you can't just dip in and play 15 minutes of that game.
You can't. The longer the better, but there's also no stopping point, so like it's a weird game. It's a weird game
to me, it's like if I don't have an hour, I'm not booting it up.
For the most part, I agree. So in honor of Diablo 2, I downloaded and booted up the Median XL Sigma mod, which is a mod. So I did this for two reasons. The first reason was actually because I got onto Path of Exile. I was like, hey, I'll try that out because there's a new expansion, like league thing with a new mechanic. And immediately I'm like, no, it's too much. I cannot do it with this game anymore. It's too hard to try to find out what I want to do, even though I understand what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
It was giving me anxiety. I was like, I need to go to something simpler. Maybe I'll play Diablo 2. Hey, there's a really extensive mod that people talk really highly of. Maybe I'll give that a try. So that's what I did.
Okay.
And
so tell us about the mod. What does it change?
Everything. So it's been around for a long time. It's gone through like tons of revisions. This Sigma version is like the latest one, and they're on like 1.13. And so it doesn't overhaul anything about the gameplay necessarily. It's still the main 7 classes, so it includes the expansion and all that. But just about everything else is completely overhauled. The differences are literally too much to count. They're like, oh, just go read the documentation. I'm like, it's like 12 to 15 years of documentation.
Holy cow.
Some of it's like accurate and some of it isn't because they've gotten rid of a lot of stuff that they've done in the past. So the first and biggest knock I'll give is like, you have like what is literally an entirely different game, and you have given me almost no recourse or resource to like as a beginner to just kind of like, here are your bullet points. This is what you really want to know if you've either A, never played this game, or B, have and it's still completely new to you and you want to know what's up. So that's kind of a downer. Like, it's the same thing I was trying to run away from in Path of Exile. But because it's still Diablo, they're still limited to how much they can really even change. So it's still manageable. So first and foremost, quality of life changes, which is what mods are usually for. Higher display resolution doesn't go all the way to like, 1920, 1080, but you don't need it to. It's just so much better at what it is. I think it caps out at 12 something. So that leads to a much bigger inventory on your person. You start off with the Herodric Cube in your inventory, which is also much bigger inside. So it used to be like, 9x9? Or 3x3 for like 9 squares or something like that?
Oh, I don't remember, man.
Yeah,
it's been
so you can fit really small.
Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah, not a lot. Just enough to like craft an item or two, which is what the point of the cube was. And I'm definitely going to come at this from somebody who's played Diablo 2 before. If you haven't before, I'm sorry, I can't teach you what Diablo 2 is.
Right. I don't think you have to.
Right. So the cube is bigger, which is in your inventory right away, which is bigger. So basically, you're going to be going to town a lot less. You're going to be picking up more stuff. You move faster. Unfortunately, it's so there's a walking animation and a running animation in Diablo 2. There was this huge bug where defense was a stat you had, but it meant nothing while you were running. So if you're running through a group of enemies on your way to somewhere else and they just started shooting arrows or swinging their sword at you, you were going to get hit. No questions asked, because like while running, defense was worthless. They fixed this by making walking faster. And so you move at a comparable speed, but you're doing the walking.
It looked weird.
It looks weird. Exactly. It looks stilted. You can run by holding control or whatever hotkey you've put it to. And that's what uses your stamina now. So technically you can just move forever. There is no more like, you don't have to like worry about stamina from that regard.
I always thought stamina was the lamest part of the game.
It was, and they've pretty much gotten rid of it. So that's kind of cool. Town portals is just a default skill you have. So no more buying portals, and it's like a 10-second cooldown. I had 10 minutes in the document. I was totally wrong about that. It's 10 seconds. So I can go back to town whenever I want, right back into the dungeon whenever I want. Super cool. Some things they actually changed about the game: a complete overhaul of items, like brand new models and like, designs. They've renamed some things, sockets, and just about everything right out the gate. Lots of new class-specific weapons and armor. So in the original, I think everybody had one type of armor and one type of weapon. Now they have two of each, and those weapons, like, it means something. It's not just going to be like, oh, it looks slightly different, and it might have like a skill up. So just totally different. Like, it's overwhelming to a point, and yet at the same time, again, because I kind of know Diablo 2, it feels familiar, and so it's not as overwhelming as something like Path of Exile can be.
Can you play online with other people?
You can play online. I haven't done it yet, but you obviously, because it's modded so heavily, it's not just like, oh, we pick up gold, because just about anything would kind of ruin it for other people if they're not on the same thing.
Sure, yeah.
So you're only playing with other people who have the mod.
That's what I figured, but I have to believe there's maybe just as many, if not more people using this mod than playing the original.
Sounds like it's still, like it's kicking still, just like, like the main game is, and so is this, because I think the main game is just bots now. And, some people, but
yeah, well, you and I tried that game not too long ago, and it just was like spam bots.
Yep, that's all there was.
And then we did Path of Exile, and we liked it for some time.
I need a guru for Path of Exile. I need someone to teach me enough so that from then on, as long as I keep up to date with the game, like with their patches and stuff, that I can just kind of just play it myself. Because right now, every time I play that game, even when I'm having a good time, I've still got this guide. I'm like, okay, where do I put my skill points? What kind of weapons are good? It's just, I just can't do it.
Well, that's the issue I had with it, and I was using you as my guru, and I think that worked well for the beginning part of it, because we were playing, I think, a legacy version of it. Like, we weren't playing the newest thing, and
no. I can get to level 30 in that game all day long, and right around a 30-40 level mark, which is about halfway through the main story before you get to the end game stuff, is when I'm like, if I wasn't doing this right, I'm gonna start to suffer, and it becomes apparent. Probably the biggest change they made in the game is that every character has an entirely new skill tree. They actually only have 2 skill trees now instead of 3 like they used to, and there's the third one is reserved for incredibly high levels where you pick these super ultimate passives, and you can't pick all of them, you can only pick some of them. The level cap has been raised to 120, which leads to more rapid leveling up, which is just fun. It's fun to level up in games like Diablo.
Oh yeah,
by the Den of Evil is the first quest you get. Usually you'd be level 3 or 4 by the time you're done with it. I was level 6, which is very high, if you think back on old original Diablo. But points and stats right out the gate, and it's just it's awesome. And they have a recipe to create an item that will let you reset your level, pretty easily obtainable, maybe not within the first couple hours.
They added that in the regular game too.
But it's a lot harder. You have to be in the end game. This will be available to me supposedly as long as I have a rune, which they drop a lot of, and some other item I can buy from a vendor. I'll be able to get the recipe very easily.
I just want to say on that I really appreciate it when they allow you to restat and make it a little hard but still attainable. What I don't like is systems like in Diablo 3 where nothing matters because you're just picking what skill you're using in that scenario, but then you can always go in and switch it. I like it to make you commit to something, to a build. Give me an out if I've totally screwed up, because I don't want to get to be level 99 and figure out that my character is not going to be able to beat the last thing or whatever. And this, I'm talking more broadly than just Diablo 2. But what I'm saying is I really love the way Diablo 2 handles that, and it sounds like this mod made it even better.
Yeah, I think it strikes the perfect balance. Because in games like Path of Exile, there is no reset. That's not true. You can technically reset if you're rich enough, because they have an item that erases a passive point, which is the only permanent thing that can happen to your character. At which point you just get enough of those to back yourself up to where you need to, and then branch out wherever you want to. So it's not. I still think that that's still a bit too much. I think I'm gonna like this mod a little bit better. And I'm sure there's another mod I could just put on top of that lets me just click a button and do it if I had to guess, but I don't need it because I'm just experimenting. Got a barb. He's at level 13.
You do love the big boys.
I do love the big boys, man. I don't know if I like this version of him. I think I actually might like the original one better. I'll keep playing around with the other classes in the next couple of weeks and see which of these, because they're it's a new class. I mean, the archetype is mostly there. Sorceresses still cast, barbs are melee, blah, blah, blah.
But you know what else barbs do?
What do they do?
They shout!
They do. Oh!
Shoutcast, baby. No work tomorrow.
Shoutcast. No work,
no
which
rules.
means I can wake up my daughter.
Woo, woo, woo.
But yeah, I really like it so far. I'm going to keep playing more of it.
Cool. Did you get any further on the Last of Us Part 2?
I got a lot further. When we had recorded last, I was only about where you are now, which is like 4-ish hours into it.
4 or 5, yeah.
And then I played like 4 hours the next night straight.
Nice.
And then a few more. I think I'm 9 or 10, close to 10 actually. And if I had to guess, I don't know because I didn't have the end of the game spoiled to me. I'm about halfway. I would have to assume I'm like at the halfway point.
Okay.
Like a big thing happened that kind of just signifies this is Act 2. I'm like, okay, or Act 3 because however it's broken out.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's good. It's not great. It's just like it's so hard to describe.
Yeah.
It's not to say it's not captivating is wrong. It's certainly not riveting though. And it's not because of the content. Like everyone's like, "Oh, it's so heavy." I'm like, "Have you never like the same people that watch Game of Thrones and other like, high quality television, they binge it and they watch movie after movie of like I'm like and they've played games like maybe not quite like this. Naughty Dog has raised this to a new level, but it's also not such a high level that you should be totally unfamiliar to you. I don't know. It's hard to parse.
I understand what you're saying. I guess the only counterpoint that I'll make is that it's a little different when you're the one controlling it. It's almost like you have to live through it versus just like being able to sit back and watch it. So I
disagree. I disagree.
Well, I don't know. Like to me, it's just more. It's not like emotionally draining. As I'm getting older, and maybe this is just a me thing. It seems like it's really harder. It's hard for me, even if I have the time to play any game for more than, say, 2 hours straight.
No, that I understand. That's different, though.
So, I'm kind of dovetailing it in that I could kind of see how people would be exhausted of being in that world and that scenario and immersed in that for extended periods versus just watching it. But you're saying it's not different. Well, I mean, to you.
To me, right. This game is poorly paced, and not just because it's too long. Because I do think it's too long. There's no stopping point. Like this game just doesn't have the same like the first one is paced excellently. Like
because of the vignette setup of
kinda,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Like like summer ends and fall starts, and that is a hard stop. Time has passed. The next part of their story begins. It's like an episode of something. And it didn't have to do it exactly like that, but like stories and games just naturally find these moments, and this game doesn't have that. And it's not good for a 30 or 20 to 30 hour game to just be constantly going.
Right.
It's just not good. Shouldn't do that.
So what do you mean when you say constantly going?
Like in a good way, in somewhat of a good way, like I want to see what's next. Or it just doesn't feel like I can stop here without feeling weird. What if I were to pick it back up in that moment? I guess is the better way to put it.
Okay, I got you.
Except for where I did end, because it was like this halfway, like it was very clear, like, okay, and breathe. We're going to do this for a while now.
Right, which is interesting because I know we kind of talked about this last episode, but going back to the pacing of the first game, I liked the opening being kind of calm, and then getting super intense, and then backing off and saying, okay, here we are now. Versus this game, it's more tonally, like, it seemed pretty calm at the beginning, and then it ramps, and so far it hasn't stopped ramping, and it's kind of where I'm at anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to see if that holds true, but you're right. Up until where I'm at, that is the exact same experience I'm having.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just, it gives you no break, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'll talk more on the themes of this game once we eventually do a spoiler cast. But I enjoy them so far. I find that I have a much different takeaway than a lot of people are having, at least in the public sphere on Twitter and in reviews and stuff. Like, it's obvious that hatred and revenge are something that they wanted to discuss. But for me, it's grief. Like, and obviously that's the source of their revenge and their hatred. But like, I think to me, that's the core of this game. This game is about what happens, to a person when they're grieving in this kind of world. But yeah, it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out. But I think that, to me, that's going to be the core of this. And I like that way better as a message or as a theme to explore than just hatred and just revenge.
Right.
But I'm going to see it through. I am still enjoying myself.
Sure. You're still playing on the same difficulty?
Yeah, I mean, I dropped it down to there's a baseline. I put it one step lower than that at the very beginning, and I didn't touch anything else.
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing too. I can't remember if we talked about that last week, but I have joined you and turning it down.
Was there a reason?
Actually there was. There were just points, and I'm not great at video games, but I don't suck at video games, but there were parts where I just wanted to get to the next story beat, and I just kept getting hung up on one little stupid infected seeing me and killing me, and then I had to restart that section. It was never a huge deal, but it really was really killing my vibe of trying to see what happened next. And so I was just like, you know what? The gameplay is good, but it's not like God of War. I don't need, I'm trying to experience the story. So I just dropped it one, I've heard some other impressions of this game say that, like specifically Colin Moriarty on Sacred Symbols, which, hey, I'm wearing his shirt. He said that in the first game he thought that, and he said these are not his complete impressions, but so far to the point where he's at. He said in the first game he thought that the story outshined the gameplay, and in this game he thinks it's reverse, where the gameplay outshines the story, and that kind of makes me maybe want to take it back up to the baseline. But I'm going to play a little bit more and see how I feel about that.
I think that's only true because the story's not as good, though. Yes, the game, by all accounts, the gameplay has improved, but it's also this is not going to be what people remember about this game, And so to say that is kind of just to say that the story isn't as good. That's all it's really saying. Yes,
and
combat is improved. I wouldn't take it up. It doesn't get easier. There's going to be more encounters. The encounters are fun. They have utilized buildings and environments in a really fun way that what'll happen is I'll finish one, you'll wipe out a whole bunch of infected or people, and the characters they'll say something letting you know that the encounter's over.
Yeah.
And then I'll walk around and I'm like, man, I could have gone here. Oh, or over here. Oh, wow. Oh, and I was like, but I didn't know that. Here's a knock against the game that sometimes you can skip an encounter, but you won't know sometimes until you've killed everybody, and it's kind of obvious that you could have just run away, and that's cool, and they should have made that more apparent in the beginning of the game. And when there's so many people, it can be really hard to tell if because sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes they want you to kill they want you to finish the encounter. They don't just want you to run away and go past it. And this was true in the first one too. There were some places you could just sneak by. You didn't have to kill every last clicker you saw, but sometimes you did. And so I guess that's just more of the same in that regard. But I just wish that in that long prologue thing that they had made it more obvious. Like some characters tells Ellie, hey, let's just skip this by sneaking past them, And maybe they did, and I wasn't paying attention and just killed everything.
Well, then if you missed it, I missed it too. So,
and we can't both be wrong,
right?
So it's little stuff like that. And there was kind of in the same vein. Oh, there's just certain mechanics you can kind of you can run and drop prone really quick, or drop prone backwards, which is interesting. And they never once show you how to do that. And I'm like, when was I supposed to know how to do this? There's no manual.
I didn't know you could do that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and when Ellie gets hurt sometimes, she'll drop prone, but she'll drop prone holding her gun trained on the person who was shooting at her, giving you okay, yeah, you took a hit, but here's a quick, get back on your feet moment where you can shoot them really, in case you weren't already aiming at them or whatever. But anyway, you still enjoying it?
Yeah, I mean, I am, like I said, 4 or 5 hours in, somewhere in that neighborhood, and really interested to see what happens next. But that's all I'll say. 15
days until Ghost of Tsushima. Hurry up.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I should get a pretty big chunk knocked out this weekend on The Last of Us. If I don't just play Borderlands 3.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I might finish it. Depends on just how the weekend plays out.
You're a champ when it comes to marathon gaming.
I'm a liar, is what I am.
Age.
Yeah, exactly.
For your age.
I know. It's like, I'm never free to play. I got about 20 hours of gaming in this week. But some weeks that's not true. Some weeks that's not true. We've started swapping bedtimes. I'm just getting to a tangent here. I used to do bedtime like all the time because it's just how it kind of played out. She always wanted me to do bedtime. And then she finally started asking for mama. And so I was like, oh, hey. And it lasts a long time. Bedtime is an ordeal, as any parent knows.
It's a routine. It's a whole thing.
So if I've done everything I need to and it's not super late, I'll boot it up and I'll get a nice chunk before she comes back into the room, my wife that is. And then, I'll play a little bit more because she's doing her own thing, decompressing after bedtime, etc. And then I'll have gotten, 2-ish hours. And then if she decides to go to sleep, then I can get 2 more or that's when we turn the TV on and watch whatever.
This is a total aside that no one else is going to be interested in, but do you eat dinner with Juliet or after she goes to bed?
Unfortunately, very rarely do we eat dinner with her.
Yeah.
If we want her to get a decent bedtime, trying to figure out, because we're really bad about making dinner. We have food, obviously.
It's hard.
It is. It's really hard. We're not food preppers. We don't do that. So like if we want a meal we're all going to share together, that's complicated if it's not frozen pizza and we can only eat so much of that a week.
Sure.
But I can make her a meal, a healthy, well-balanced meal, easily enough on her own.
Right. Especially when they're young and they only want the same 5 things anyway.
Yeah. And then we, the last couple years, we've gotten to a bad habit, which we haven't been able to do, with its ups and downs. We would just go get something out. We wouldn't get her anything because she doesn't care, and we can save money not buying her something. But then I would run out and get Chipotle or ramen or whatever at like 9 o'clock at night. Obviously, that's a lot harder to do in quarantine, and I don't like getting stuff delivered because it's just like prohibitively expensive.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's a food aside.
Yeah. No, we kind of do the same thing where like we will eat our salads with Luke while he's eating his dinner. Like if we're going to eat it at the table. Mm-hmm. And then we'll, do the bedtime routine and because it's just like also kind of just, that's our time to decompress and spend time together. So anyway, have you been playing anything else that you actually want to talk about?
I have, for some reason, I booted up Breath of the Wild and started a new save file.
What prompted you?
I have no idea. I just felt the urge. I saw it's just always there on my bar because it's so big of a download. I keep it on the Switch pretty regularly.
Sure.
Because I have plenty of space. It's not a space issue between the Switch and the SD card, but I don't know. It's calling me. The Breath of the Wild. The Wild was calling.
Is it holding up?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. I want to talk about game length this next week or the week after.
Oh, yeah.
Because this just as a quick insight into that, I didn't want to keep playing Xenoblade after 25 hours, but I played Breath of the Wild for 80 no problem, and I would keep playing it when I got the DLC a year later, and now I'm starting over, and who knows how long. I mean, I probably won't do another 80, but I'll probably get a decent chunk into it, and that game is just so much fun to play. It's just
so I take it that means you're looking forward to the sequel.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Have you been kind of keeping pulse on the media stuff that they have released on it?
All I know that they've said about, aside from it not coming out this year, was the trailer they released last year.
Jude from Tennessee writes, I got listener questions.
Ooh.
He writes kind of a handful, and I don't know that I'll read every single one of these, but he wants to know, what did you think? What were your high-level impressions of the trailer?
Of the trailer, my high-level impression was, ooh, I'm intrigued. Have you seen it, right?
No, actually, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. We're gonna walk through it right now.
Great. Oh, I'm pulling it up. It's only a minute and 40.
Yeah, it's very short. It's very short.
Okay, cool.
So, are we gonna sit here and let you watch it?
No. Go.
Oh, okay. So basically, lots of close-up shots of Link and Zelda. Slightly different hairstyle for Zelda, if I'm not mistaken. They're walking underground or in a cave, it looks like. You're seeing these it's very eerie. Very eerie is the atmosphere. The music is very creepy. Close-up shots of, text, glowing stuff. They've got torches, maybe some beast of burden, some pack animal with their stuff on it as they go down this like kind of spirally thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Lots of green like light, very reminiscent of the first game. And they get to this thing, and it's like on this, it's like this, the focal of this giant cavern. The focus point of this giant cavern, and basically some stuff happens, and it's like this mummified version of Ganondorf. And then it like its head crocks back and its eyes glow red, and then like it like cuts to the outside world, like Hyrule, and something's like like it's starting to rumble and something's happening, and then it's like Breath of the Wild 2, and you're like, whoa.
Dude, you like, tracked like 1-to-1 shot for shot as I was watching that.
I watched it a fair amount the first time, but I have no idea what to expect. Like, they're clearly going to reuse some of this game, but how much, I don't know how you because even as big as like the world map was, the open world map was, like, if you played this game extensively, you saw a good chunk of it. So to just have it be the same map would be a mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I also don't know what using the same world while having a completely different map looks like. Are we going to be underground? Don't know. Is something going to come up that just completely, utterly changes the landscape of Hyrule? Something that Zelda's really loves to do in the past, ever since Link to the Past, is have a light world and a dark world, or the main world and Twilight World, or
Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina, exactly. The past and the future.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to get this game's version of that, where you're going to have like the ruined above ground. So you're going to reuse a lot of stuff, but there will be changes, and then you're going to be underground for other parts of it. We're going to find out what the heck Ganondorf's doing, because it looks like he was like imprisoned maybe, or like, you know, his body was like kept like, it's clearly still got some semblance of life or activity, and
its eyes lit, like it opened its eyes and glowed red. It's like, it's almost like the body got possessed or something by some sort of evil.
Yeah, but the hair is real long, but it's got the red dreads. It's got all this gold jewelry. It just looks so cool. Like, it's so like, wow, this is nothing. Even though like Breath of the Wild was already nothing like we've ever seen before from Nintendo or Zelda, and they're doing it again in this trailer at least, which is very promising. You know, I mean, the first game was so good, and, you know, there's a lot of room for improvement's not necessarily the right word. I mean, in some aspects, but like, it was so simple. It was a simple game. Run here, climb this. You only have like 6 tools, and then you can use weapons and bows. And like, that was it. Those were the recipe. Those were the tools you could tackle that world with. And so it just left a lot for them to be able to add to.
Sure. So then let me ask you, Jude has a couple more questions here. Mm-hmm. What do you think do you have any inkling of what the storyline might be for this sequel? And how it will play off the first one?
I really don't. Aside from getting into who Ganondorf is in this particular like sort of time frame, because like it implies he's been like this for a long time, like Calamity Ganon, where he's basically just a rage spirit. Excuse me. So maybe we get into why that was. I don't know, because like the timeline is all over the place in this one because it's so far in the future, and even in the context of the game, you're in the future of the future, basically. Like all these guardians and like the giant divine beasts were something that were left there thousands of years ago, and then you're 100 years in the future because you got comatose and just woke up, etc. The game, it's a blank slate. They can literally do anything. It's hard to say. They
really can, because I was just thinking, could this even potentially be in the past before you basically a prequel, kind of, you know?
Oh no, because I mean, it could be, but it would be quite the double fake, because the shot they show at the end where it shows like the surface, that's current day Hyrule, you know?
Okay.
And everything kind
that
of
could be the end of the game. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, because the first one ends with no idea of what the future might bring for a now Ganon-free Hyrule, except maybe it's not so Ganon-free, you know?
Yeah, but that would be the obvious thing. That's why I thought prequel would be cool, but...
Now, what they do a lot of the time in direct sequels or you know, the next Zelda game is they get kind of weird with it, especially with the enemy. It's not always Ganon or Ganondorf. For instance, in Zelda 2... the enemies were trying to revive Ganon because you've killed him in the first one, but they had like a spell they could cast or something, and so you end up fighting like a mirror version of yourself as like the big bad at the end or something. And then in what was it? Skyward Sword, it was like the prequel to the entire series, and so the boss was like Ganondorf is in it, I think, but not in the same like capacity as he normally is. And then of course Majora's Mask doesn't have any kind of like semblance of a regular Zelda game, except for a very few amount of things you fight.
Isn't
Majora's
the bad
Mask.
guy the moon in that one?
The moon's gonna kill everybody, but he's not the bad guy. The bad guy is some skull
Sounds
kid
like a bad guy.
He's got a mean face.
Yeah,
mean
he does.
face. It's creepy, scary.
Does he have a voice?
The moon's not a character.
Well, he's got a face and he's a bad guy. He's going to kill everybody. He sounds like a character.
The moon, I don't know why the moon has a face. The moon has simply been summoned to Earth by the main villain.
Gotcha.
And it's going to just destroy the planet.
So he's a weapon. He's not really a bad guy.
He's a weapon with a face.
Well, hey, last question from Jude on this topic. What left you disappointed about the first Breath of the Wild that you hope that they change and iterate and improve on in the second?
That's a good question, because there's not a lot I was disappointed with.
What about like weapon durability?
Not a problem for me. There's anybody who says I don't like that, I'm like, okay, it's fine. That's a valid opinion. Don't say it like that, but that's a valid opinion. However, the game goes out of its way to give you so many weapons at all times.
Right.
You must be bad at this game if you don't have a full stock of them, even after you expand your inventory of really good weapons, because I always did. You're either like fighting wrong or you're rushing through and ignoring the point of the game, which is to explore and find stuff. And now I know for some people like, oh, it ruins the exploration incentive if there's nothing except more weapons. And I'm like, maybe. But I don't know. I never thought that. I did love the story. I know a lot of people say that it's not there, but that's not true. It's there. You just got to read it between the lines. And some people think that that's not an acceptable answer, and that's fine. Again, that's just a differing of opinion. I want more of that though, because even though there was some, it was very bare bones. You know, like you would only get some. I want if they're not going to give Link a character, then they definitely have to make the other characters step up. And while Zelda was the most characterized she's ever been in a game, the other people that pilot, like his dead friends, the spirits that piloted the divine beasts that like represented each race, they needed more time to shine. And even in the DLC where they had an opportunity to give them more like dialogue and more backstory, they barely did. It was really disappointing. So I just want more characters who have a stake in this story that aren't Zelda, Link, and Ganondorf.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, Jude.
Yeah, thank you. Man, that was the longest What Have You Been Playing we've, I think, ever had.
Played a lot of games. It happens when you play a lot of different stuff.
I think we should just keep... Yeah.
Keep what?
Oh, I said, let's just keep it rolling, man. Keep it rolling. This episode is going to be as long as it needs to be.
Yeah, it's not too long yet. We're going.
For all 28 of you, 3 of which listen.
Oh, I thought you had some more.
Okay.
There.
No, I was taking a drink of water.
There's so much dead air.
There's so much to do.
So much dead air.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. We can edit it out, but we won't.
Oh, well, I mean, a little bit.
Nah.
I got one gripe before we move on to the topic of the show.
Is it a gaming gripe of the week?
Yeah. Gaming gripe of the week. So I watched a lot of the Avengers footage. They had they called it a war table, and they had an event last week, I think, or maybe even the week before, that I picked up well after the fact. I watched impressions and footage, etc. Game looks boring. Like I am going to skip it. I don't have any desire to play this game, unfortunately. But watching this game with people like the Hulk and Thor, I never, ever, 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 ever want to hear someone complain about how Superman is not an interesting character or can't be in a video game, because for all intents and purposes, these characters, Hulk and Thor and many like them in the Marvel Universe, are just as invulnerable for the sake of what that means. You're not killing the Hulk. Not without a bunch of hoops and magic, and the same can be done to Superman. So stop saying that it can't be done and just make a Superman game already.
Do it, you cowards.
Yep. Because it's just like, it's because in the Avengers, it was just robots and monstrous creatures. Superman can fight robots and monstrous creatures. He can have a health bar. It's okay to break a little bit of the, there can be a little bit of dissonance between the gameplay and the story. It's okay. That happens constantly in video games anyway. Why does everyone get hung up on Superman specifically? It's like, oh, he's too powerful, but he's not omnipotent. He can't literally be everywhere all the time.
He's not Vision.
Fight. What?
Vision?
No, he's not Vision.
Exactly. Or that other guy, Dr. something.
Strange?
Yeah, Dr. Strange.
Dr. Strange.
I was going to call him Dr. Sherlock Holmes, but yeah.
Dr. Sherlock Holmes. Dr. Cumberbund.
Pingling.
Yeah. What?
Have you ever seen it's so funny, sorry. It's a video of Benedict Cumberbatch trying to say the word penguin.
Yes, penguin.
Yeah, and he's narrating a documentary about penguins, and he cannot, for the life of him, say that word.
He says it wrong. It's so funny.
So funny.
Check it out if you haven't seen it. It's really good. It's short. You can watch it as long as you want. Like as soon as it stops being funny, turn it off. But it's really funny.
Oh, I love it. Anyway, sorry. I did not mean to disarm your rage.
No, it's good. I wasn't mad. I wasn't in a rage, but I am irritated. It's
a gripe.
It doesn't make any sense.
You're right. And you know what would be cool, man, if Rocksteady made it. But that won't happen. But it would be cool.
They said they weren't. So, and if they were, I would want to lie about it too, because that's the kind of thing you want to be, keep under your hat, lock and key, etc. Anyway, on to the topic of the show. The topic of the show is spoilers. So spoilers has become a whole different beast than it was when I was growing up. And even when I was like in high school and early college and stuff. So that's over 10 years ago now. People get really bent out of shape about spoilers. And not just for games. I'm one of those people. You're one of those people. And of course, everybody is. No one wants to... You don't go up to somebody and say how Avengers Endgame ends after watching, 10 years worth of Marvel movies. But in the same breath, I feel that potentially, anyway, this industry specifically, but yeah, definitely the gaming industry, because there's nothing like gaming. So it's hard to compare it sometimes to TV and movies. People are getting a little out of hand with what they think spoilers are, how they react to them. And then on the other side, this disgusting need to find them and spoil other people. So
I don't get that at all.
I don't either. So we're going to define spoiler. Excuse me. I'm starting to get a little squeaky. Jason, what counts as a spoiler to you?
So to me, this is Jason's definition of a spoiler. It is anything that ruins my experience of the game in advance of me reaching that point of the game. That
is quite the definition. Go on.
You want me to elaborate?
I mean, like, that's not even the thing is, what that tells me is, like, you won't even know it's a spoiler till you get to that part of the game and decide that was a spoiler. Like, you won't know that your experience was ruined. Or are you saying that your experience is ruined in that moment?
Well, I'm saying, I guess maybe that needs a qualifier of, like, when I see it, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to know that. Because there are some times when, even in a trailer, I'm like, oh, that's a really cool combat mechanic that it looks like they added. Like, I didn't want to know that. Or, oh, they go there. I didn't want to know that. You know what I mean?
I do. I understand it. I understand most people's points. I guess I just never feel as strongly about them because, like,
how do you define it?
For me, a spoiler is almost always strictly a story point. A major story point that alters the course of the narrative or a character's development, like major plot points. Sometimes that can be, oh, these characters go this place, but out of context, it's usually difficult to know. And, like, I don't like to go into a game blind, and I know you don't either. And yet at the same time, you also don't want to, like, watch anything. So I
do like to go into a game blind.
Right, but you also don't like wasting your money or your time, and so I think it's very interesting dichotomy of, like, feelings that you have as someone who, the pro consumer here, but at the same time doesn't want to know the product he's buying into.
Because I can gauge high level impressions of it without knowing really anything about it. Like if I'm interested in it and the zeitgeist around it is hype, it's good, it's got a good Metacritic score, people are saying
when is that not the case though?
When is it not the case? When a game bombs.
But games almost never bomb.
Well,
they still sit in the high 80s. People still get hyped about them. Some people then turn around and say, that wasn't for me, but you still have so many people left over. Like, you could say that about almost any game.
Okay, so, like, let's see. Control. Let's see what the...
Good pick. Very good pick.
78 on Metacritic for the PS4 version. I mean, that would tell me that people were not... super like they were mixed on that.
Sure.
And that's
enough,
what
a very hard game to spoil because of how crazy it is. Like you couldn't just say something and be like, and now you know the game, because like, nope, you definitely don't know that game yet.
Well, so yeah, I mean, I guess where I'm going with this is I can know enough about a game to know whether it deserves my $60 on very high level impressions. And then past that, I'm either going to wait till the price drops or I'm just not going to buy it.
All right. Good point on the price drop part. You are patient. You don't drop $60 easily. So that is, it sounds like your system probably works.
Yeah. For me, it does.
When was the last time you were disappointed at a game? And do you think if you would have been able to prevent that if you'd looked at stuff more?
The last time I was disappointed with a game that I paid a pretty decent amount of money for, although I split it with you and Matt, was Luigi's Mansion 3, and I don't really think that's not one I would have dropped $60 on if I wasn't going in on it with you guys. But
and thankfully we didn't, because I wouldn't have either.
I mean I don't really know that looking stuff up, because I've seen videos of Luigi's Mansion before. Like, I know the concept of it. I don't really think looking it up would have saved me from that, because I would have looked at it and be like, well, it's still something I want to try.
Gotcha.
That's me anyway. But
all right.
I mean, let's see, what else? I feel weird saying Spider-Man.
Spider-Man was a disappointment?
And it wasn't a disappointment, but I didn't beat it. And
because you just didn't feel the urge to?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I got to the point where the loop was so repetitive that I just was like, and the story wasn't compelling enough, at least at the part I was at. And maybe if I had powered through that, I would have felt differently about it, because I loved like the first half of that game. Yeah. And then it just got to a point where I'm like, eh.
And that's another great game to bring up, because that game, I wouldn't say it was spoiled, maybe almost at all. But there is stuff that happens. That game got a lot of coverage, both by people who wanted to know more about it and by people on the publishing marketing side who were like, Spider-Man.
Right.
And so they showed a lot of that game off, and I watched most of it. I
didn't, because I didn't want to know, like sorry, which is one thing I just didn't. I didn't want to know that like the fun part of those games to me is like, what enemies are there going to be in there? Like, you know what I mean? Like what callbacks will there be in the universe and that sort of thing. And I didn't want to know any of that.
Yeah. I do like a villain reveal. I will say that. I like a villain reveal. Like, I didn't know who the villain was in God of War, and I don't think I would have liked that game as much if I knew who it was.
It's Atreus, isn't it?
Because it's Atreus. Atreus, that little dink. He just turns around and he's like, I am the god of Nordic war. I'm an old man now, too.
Grumpcast.
Love me, daddy.
He just made it way weird.
No, it's just Atreus is his son.
Oh, okay.
Which is so funny because, like, I knew so little about that game. And not because I avoided it for any intentional reason. I didn't think I was going to play it. I don't remember why, but then like I had a friend at work and a lot of people online were just like, this game's amazing. I'm like, all right, I'll pick it up. And I got it for my birthday. And it's easily one of my favorite games of all time now.
It's amazing. I also got it for my birthday, probably the same year.
And there are parts of that game, not a lot, because the story is definitely more character driven than plot driven. But there are parts of that game that if you find them out too soon, destroy those moments for you. You cannot get that back. And I'm glad, I went into that game blind, and I think it did definitely help that I went in blind because. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, no, go ahead and you finish that thought.
I was just gonna say, like, I think some games benefit more than others. And it's hard to say which ones do and don't. Like, and of course, it's up to the person as well. But some games, like, it just didn't matter because either the story was weak enough that it does, like, you just don't care, or the gameplay is kind of just a known quantity. Like, oh, we've seen this before because it's a sequel, or we've seen this genre so many times. Like, there's nothing you can do to surprise us. Where that wasn't true on either account for God of War. They had brought the gameplay up to such a new... We talk about this game so much on this podcast.
Because it's so good.
It is so good. But the narrative and the gameplay were both so new or so well done that the less you knew, the more surprising it was and more organic it felt. So...
All I was going to say is that's a game where I don't know exactly how it was marketed, but to me, it would have really ruined... a lot of what I felt like when I fell in love with that game, if they had shown the opening fight scene as, like, say, a vertical slice. Or if they're like, hey, this is the preview event and this is the part of the game you're going to play, and everybody got to see that. And I don't think they did that, but I'm just saying, I know there are developers out there who will show, like, the coolest, best part of the game as their vertical slice. And then it's like, you get to that moment and it's the peak and you're like, okay, I just feel let down because I played this game thinking, like, this is what it was going to be, and this was only, like, the best part. It was not really representative.
Yeah. I feel like part of that problem that you just described also comes with games are not always made in sequential order. A game is not made in sort of chronological order. So, like, you'll work on one part, maybe the beginning at the very end, or maybe the end at the very beginning, or whatever. And sometimes they goof and they make the best part at the beginning. So you would think it's okay to show that, but then it turns out, oh, that was the best part of your game, though. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like it's like an unrealized error that they don't know, or that you don't know until you get to that part, and then you see that, oh, well, nothing really topped that, and I had 10 more hours to go.
Yeah, that exactly. It's that kind of thing. So I don't know if you'd consider that a spoiler, but I'm putting that in my umbrella definition of anything that ruins my experience of the game in advance of me reaching that point of the game.
It is a broad umbrella. That is a wide catch-all kind of thing, and that's fine. I know I had to make you watch those Cyberpunk impressions.
Yeah. I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad I did, because, and here's the other thing. Normally when I see that stuff in advance, it actually, like, makes me not look forward to the game as much.
Yeah, I hear you. It kills the hype a bit.
Yeah, so like Ghost of Tsushima, I kind of wish I didn't watch that state of play, because I'm not excited for that game. And Cyberpunk was a rare one where I watched stuff on it and I'm like, dude, I'm so in.
But isn't that okay? Unless they failed utterly at their job, shouldn't the fact that you're not excited about Ghost tell you that you don't want to buy it? You don't want to play it. Not at least not as quickly, or not as fervently, or not as, like, you're it's okay to get hype deflated, even if you thought you really wanted to play it. It's okay to have your mind changed, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you still, there's so many games. There's no time to play them. If you watch a trailer and it's like, oh, I'll pass on that. Like if you told me during the fever pitch of, Marvel Insanity, Endgame had just come out, and I'm like, yeah, give me that video game right now. If you said I could have it and drop 60, I would have bought it sight unseen because of something else entirely. But now that I've seen this game, I'm very glad that I have, because I do not want to play this game. Mostly because it's a games as a service type thing, and I have no desire to play that because they are time sinks. But even as a single player, this game looks so weak and boring, and I just don't want anything to do with it. And not to just spend the time ragging on adventures, but like, a lot of people would have called this War Table like, oh, it's too much, I don't want to look at this. It's blah. It's going to give away too much of the game.
That is a really good point, and I may have to alter my stance on that as we move into the era of I keep saying error instead of era of $70 games.
Exactly. And to everybody, as much as it can be, there are sure things. Hollow Knight sequel. I'll probably watch the trailer once it's out. I don't need to. I'm gonna buy that game, and I can't see how I'm not gonna love every minute of it. Same thing, but like if I never saw another Breath of the Wild 2 trailer or footage, I don't need it. I don't need Mario footage. I don't need I don't need God of War 2 footage. I will watch it. I will watch at least the launch. The first trailer or two that they roll out. I do personally usually avoid the third trailer. There's usually 2, at least, that are good enough at not giving away too much. And then I might, I kind of like do a judgment call on whether I'm going to watch like the developer deep dive prior to the release. But the third one is usually the one they put on TV. And the one they put on TV for some reason is the one that always spoils stuff. Like for Final Fantasy VII Remake, I never saw it, so I don't know what was spoiled, but people were losing their minds. They're like, oh, can't believe they showed that. I'm like, I don't want to see it, so I'm not going to go watch it until, and I haven't gone back and seen it, but like, it's always the TV ones, and I don't know why.
And I guess maybe that's a little bit of a sliding scale for me. Because the more I hear you talk, the more I realize that for me, the only games that I want to hear nothing about are the ones that I consider to be sure things for me.
Sure.
So if I am on the fence, like Ghost of Tsushima, I was kind of on the fence, and now I guess I am glad I watched it because I'm less hype. But like Cyberpunk was always going to be a sure thing for me. So
you want it to be, at least.
Yeah,
but no,
I do.
It had a better chance than Ghost. I hear you.
Right. All
right. Leakers. Sometimes it's disgruntled employees. Sometimes it's a journalist with, a lot of connections. And sometimes it's a hacker who's got way too much time on their hands and a chip on their shoulder, as we saw with The Last of Us 2 recently. It was hackers, right?
Yeah, that's what they said.
They got through, was it like a trophy in the first game? It was crazy.
It was some sort of vulnerability in the DLC to a different game.
Anyway.
Yeah.
People leak games more than ever. And sometimes people like this. Some people live for the spoil. A lot of people don't, but for some people do. And once it's out there, unfortunately, those people like to ruin other people's time. Are leakers good? Are leaks okay? Are leakers right? Like, should it be a thing that's, that's out once the information's out there? Should it be like available for people who want to be spoiled, who really just it just doesn't bother, or they weren't going to play it or whatever? Like, how do you feel about leakers?
I hate leakers. I think, and what I wrote here is leakers can suck a butt.
I agree.
I wrote that 2 weeks ago, and I stand by it. I don't know what would possess you to try and steal intellectual property that doesn't belong to you and then let it out into the world in an unfinished form. I just cannot get into the headspace of somebody who would do that. It actually would make more sense if a disgruntled employee did it than a hacker, because at least they would have some sort of weird motivation in their own head. I don't get it. I think they do it for like admiration, or they think people will think they're cool or talented or whatever, but I'm not into it.
I mean, somebody might be paying them. You never know. For the hackers, I mean.
Yeah.
Anybody. Like, I won't begin to even name drop or publications or individuals, but like somebody might be like, hey, I'll pay for information. Not for you to go like get it, but if you've already got it, I'll pay for it. I don't know how these things work. That sounds incredibly unethical. I'm just saying it's a possibility in a realm of many possibilities.
Sure. Well, and here's the other thing. This is kind of straying a little from the leaker topic, but I've heard certain journalists make the argument that they like have an obligation to report the news, and so they won't necessarily report leaks, but they will, like, when you talk about a spoiler, how dumb is it that we knew that the Crash 4 was coming a day before the event? Why? Why do you feel obligated to report on that? Like, it makes no sense to me. And I understand maybe the argument that if you don't, somebody else will, but I don't understand why you were pretending like it's some sort of journalistic obligation. I don't think you have that obligation.
They do, because and this isn't just games journalism, quote unquote, or games media, whatever you want to call it. I don't have stick up my butt about that kind of thing. I'll call them journalists. But it's true in media in general. It's not just games. It's just how it is. Journalism has been co-opted by corporations. It doesn't really exist in the way it used to anymore. And you could argue it never really did because a paper was always owned by somebody making money off said paper. Going all the way back to when there was only papers. But no, they don't have an obligation to do it. Except that that's their job isn't just to report news. Their job is to report news that gets views and reads and clicks, etc. So it's like that is their job. It is their job to do that. And so they try to romanticize it for anybody who might like get upset, like, well, it's my journalistic integrity obligation. And so they kind of try to spin it to take the heat off any heat that they might be fighting. For the most part, at least in stuff like Crash, where it is just like a day ahead. Yeah, I like surprises. I don't like to be spoiled. It's a fun thing we have at my house. My wife and I, like, the second I figure out what I want to get her for her birthday or Christmas, I'm like, I figured it out and I want to tell you right now. And she does the same thing with me. My daughter hates surprises. You cannot tell her she has a surprise. And not because she just wants to know what it is. Like, it clearly gives her anxiety. Like, she doesn't realize that's what it is. But it's just like even we're like, hey, we're gonna go somewhere, and it's like 20 minutes away. We're going to a movie, and she doesn't know it. And she's like, where are we going? I want to know. And she starts rattling things off, like one after another.
Mini golf.
But me, I like a surprise. Exactly. I like a surprise. And so to segue into the next part of this, I hate leakers too. Stop it. In a world where people can't keep the leaks to themselves and people who want to, and keep them away from people who don't, because that's not possible, both logistically and the nastiness that are people in general who want to ruin things. Because that's how it happened with Last of Us 2. Like, I wasn't seeking them out, and I was doing a pretty good job not going where they might be. But Twitter is a big place, you know, and people, and then you click on a thread, and then it could be about pizza, and someone says, "The Last of Us 2, they go to the moon," and that, you know, it's like, and it's ruined.
And now everyone knows the ending because you just spoiled it.
Shh, that'd be so funny if that was the ending. Anyway, surprises. I like a good conference. That's why I love E3 so much. Bring back E3, hashtag E3 forever. But people have gotten, and I guess I'm kind of in this camp, but people have gotten into like, can you spoil a conference? Is that even a thing? It's just news. It's just an announcement. Can you spoil a Nintendo Direct for somebody? I
think you can.
Yeah.
No, I'm not
going to.
I think you can. Those don't bother me as much because, I mean, and sometimes companies will even do this on the front end of like, hey, tomorrow we're going to discuss blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, Nintendo will set expectation and say, this is a Smash Direct. We're going to talk about Smash characters, you know? And so like that part of it isn't the spoiler part. The spoiler part is who the character is and what are they, you know, the details, right? So I don't mind occasionally hearing a little bit of like what to expect from a conference. But so yeah, they don't bother me as much as game spoilers. I'll just say that.
Yeah, but generally. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I do think some people are bothered by it, and I would be okay if those spoilers didn't exist.
Sure. And again, like in a perfect world, there's a way to just, you know, life is a software, and you just toggle off spoilers. You know, like, yeah. And it's that easy, but that isn't how it works. But no, I like to take a conference. And I used to watch reactions, and for the most part I don't even do that anymore, of like watching people like, you know, like Kind of Funny or Easy Allies or whatever watch a conference, and not because they talk over it, because that's the point of a reactions, but because I just want to see it unfiltered, you know.
Yeah,
at least for the first time, and then I usually do go back and watch the reactions. But I like it. It's a spectacle, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people, you know, back to the journalistic obligation, they're like, oh, what are these companies hiding? I'm like, they're hiding terrible things, and we should talk about those. When they're releasing a game is not one of them. It's right. Okay if they want to hide that. That's their prerogative, because they've got a plan, and it's not your business to tell them when that plan should be, like how that plan should go. You don't work for them. It's not your company. It's not your IP. If you don't like the way they do things, that's fine, I guess. But like, it's still not your call, man.
Yeah, and there's other things to write about that aren't that. I mean, I know they're not as like clickbaity. You can't make a headline out of it, but
it's true. For better or for worse, Jason Schreier has made a lot of success off of not just this, but a lot of that. A lot of people don't like him because he gets ahead of stuff sometimes, and not the good stuff, or not the important stuff like crunch or microtransaction related things. But just leaks from sources that he has. And some people hate that kind of stuff, and some people just thrive on it, I guess. So I think I already know the answer to this question, Jason. Do you ever seek out spoilers?
I have never, and I will never.
You have never. Okay, I have. So
you have?
Last of Us Part 1, the first one. The game had been out for a couple 3 to 4 years already. I was in a position where I couldn't afford a PlayStation 3 or 4 and didn't know if I was ever going to have one. And so I was just like, I'll just look up the story. It's fine. It wasn't my kind of game anyway. I didn't think I'd ever play it. For many reasons, I never thought I would play it. So I just looked up the story. And I've done that with movies before in the past. I will just watch, CinemaSins or some other review just because I like to watch people review stuff. And if it's a story that interests me, it's more interesting. And so I kind of find a middle ground. I was like, well, that's an interesting movie or TV show or game, but I'm never going to play it. So at least I can participate in this discourse in some capacity without having to, quote unquote, waste time and money trying to find a way to consume it.
Yeah, no, but see, by my definition, that's not even a spoiler.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, because I've done that too on certain things. Like when I was playing the Uncharted trilogy, I tried really. It was the remaster on the PS4, and I tried really hard to get through the first game, and it was not holding up for me, and so I just could not make myself play it. So I just looked up, the summary of the game on YouTube, and then I just skipped to the second game.
And it was like 3 sentences long.
Yep, and it was fine. So. Yep. And then they kind of like just nerfed the weird parts at the end of Uncharted 1 a little bit. I guess maybe not. Maybe not.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
Well, okay, so I'm not going to talk about it. I guess they didn't. They did. Because Uncharted's always had this weird thing toward the end of the games where it's like stuff gets weird and it's no longer really rooted in reality and like supernatural things happen.
Spoiler.
Yeah, sorry, everybody.
Anyway, so Jason doesn't seek out spoilers because he changes the definition of what a spoiler is on the fly.
Right, pretty much. What is the worst spoiler you've ever encountered?
I don't know. I wrote this question because it's, why not? It's a fitting question, and I couldn't think of one. I remember, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember Sean spoiled a book for me. And he just blurted it out like that he told me to read. And I was like, dude, what was that? And I got to tell you, my favorite series right now is the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. It is a 10-book series that he's only written 3 of. And if anybody were to ever spoil any of those books for me before I read them, I would hurt them.
Why would you say that on your... This will be like the one time people DM us.
because I'm going to read those books the second they're available. They won't have the time
They're not
to spoil.
out yet. Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
I'm caught up. But like having read them, and there's so like the way he writes his books, almost every single one has this. They call it the Sanderlanche because it's like an avalanche, but it's Sanderson. Anyway, it's just this like 200-page nonstop roller coaster of action and thrill ride and it just ties the entire, like the book's been building up to that moment the whole time. And if I came across those, story points in a stupid tweet somewhere, I would lose it.
Don't do that.
I won't. But this can't happen to me, so.
I do have one spoiler that I encountered. It didn't happen to me, but I was in the room, and it was probably the funniest thing it was definitely the funniest spoiler I've ever seen. Uh-huh. So before I say this, if you don't want to be spoiled for Dexter season 4, stop listening right now. Karch, have you seen any Dexter?
No, but I don't want to.
Okay. So basically Dexter season 4 is kind of the turning point of when everyone says that Dexter stopped being good. And so Greg and I were watching. Actually, you know what? I'm going to spoil all of Dexter, so stop listening right now if you don't want me to spoil Dexter seasons 1 through 4. So Greg and I were on this kick where we were just like watching all this Dexter, like just binging it. It was really one of the first shows that I ever binged because it was kind of toward the beginning of when I discovered Dexter was kind of toward the beginning of the streaming, where you actually could binge shows without having to get the DVDs, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're binging Dexter, and we watched seasons 1 through 4 in like a week and a half. And then we had our friends Kane and Matt and Tony over, and we really were super stoked about Dexter. We want to show them Dexter. And season 4 had just ended, like literally just ended in real time. That's where the series was. There was no season 5. And Greg's like, oh yeah, cool. Let's just watch Dexter. We can start it over and pretend Rita doesn't die. And Rita
That's
is
his
like,
sister, right?
that's his wife.
Oh, it's his wife. Okay.
Yeah. She's like a huge character. And she, you know, it was like, it really, really threw me for a loop when it happened.
That's so funny.
And John Lithgow's in season 4. He plays the villain, and he is
I did hear about that.
Amazing.
I heard it's very good.
Oh my gosh,
It's just not my cup. I tried I've tried the first 3 episodes like 3 times, and I just couldn't do it.
Okay, Dexter spoilers over.
Okay,
all
right. Now that we've spoiled Dexter
and Uncharted, which I might cut that out too.
And let's see. I'm trying to think. I think I might have accidentally spoiled something for someone in Game of Thrones once, not realizing they might not have seen it or read the books, but that's a longer story.
You jerk.
I know. Me too. I don't know why I said me too.
I'm leaving it. It's getting late, ladies.
I hope you enjoy your dinner. Me too.
Sleepy Karch is
walk a boy, baby.
Saying stuff.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap up with some listener questions. We already had a little bit earlier from Jude, but this is from Sean. So he writes in, he says, so a simpler question than usual. I've asked before about what game you would like a sequel of. A bit more abstract, what kind of game do you wish the industry was making? Could a Red Dead Redemption 2 but fantasy themed, or could be a Red Dead Redemption 2 but fantasy themed, or something like that? Take care, Sean.
Do you want to start, or you want me to?
No, I got nothing, so why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I really thought about this a lot, because I used to have all these ideas of what games I wanted to be made, like back when I was younger, and I feel like we've fulfilled a lot of those like gaming fantasies, to the point where there's nothing that I desire that's not already in existence, unless I were to think a little bit harder about this question. Because if you had asked me this question literally 3 days ago, I probably would have told you Diablo 2, but first-person shooter and fun. So like basically not Destiny, because Destiny doesn't scratch that same itch for me. But then I played Borderlands 3, and I'm like, holy cow, this is it. This is what I wanted. At least with like the hour I put into it. So one thing that I thought of that would be really cool is if there were, it doesn't necessarily have to be Batman, but like an Arkham type game where you are kind of like, I don't want to say superhero, but really skilled at combat. Okay. But instead of just like the Rocksteady, super easy counter, mash the X button combat, I want Arkham-ish type of game of exploration in the city where you can kind of go and swing and do all this stuff, but I want God of War level combat mechanics. But I also want Hitman stealth elements, and I want the same level of interactive environments and sandboxiness as Hitman. So like, in other words, pick any weapon up, pick anything up in the game, throw it whatever you want. Can choose stealth non-violent path or all out whatever you want, like God of War combat path. That's kind of like what I put it together in my head of like, I like this element from this game and this element from this game.
That does sound like a perfect fantasy game. Fantasy being like unreachable kind of dream game.
I don't think you could make that right now. But it would be so cool.
You could, just that those are all very different disciplines, and it's clear that any given studio or dev team can only focus on one thing, or is only good enough to do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And to combine all those, like, you couldn't just tell Sony Santa Monica, all right, God of War's great, keep that, but do Hitman too.
Yes.
Like, I don't think that's happening.
Well, I love the idea of being able to do stealth, but then being able, if things break down and you can't pull it off, just like actually having good combat.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds cool. I gave it a little thought just now. Open world Harvest Moon. That's what I want. No, not
man.
Really. Well, maybe. That sounds not bad. I got down this path. I was thinking about Harvest Moon because it's coming out soon. And so this thing, first one I ever played was Harvest Moon 64, one of my favorite games of all time. In the top 100. Not that favorite, but it's somewhere in the top 100. Lots of nostalgia, etc. The mechanic in Harvest Moon is that you can marry one of the characters. It's, you move into town, you build up a farm, you woo her, sweep her off her feet, and like, we're going to get married and have a baby. It's cute. It's fun. One of my favorite parts, however, was afterward, you can then marry off the other characters because they all have like a counterpart. You can marry off the other characters by befriending them. It's this kind of fun little thing. After you're done, giving gifts to this, the person that you want to marry, there's not a lot to do with like in the marriage. Like she's just in your house now, and she's there when you wake up, and she's there when you go, just like real life. Anyway, it was this fun little thing to do. I mean, the game was still there, the farming, etc. But once you reach that point, you're about 3/4 of the way through before the moment comes where you're kind of like evaluated. So it was just this fun little thing that kind of this random side optional goal that you could do. And for some reason, maybe like in one other game after that, but every other game they've made since, they don't do that anymore. You're not allowed to like marry off the rest of the characters. And sometimes that's because they're really fluid with like sexuality or like the at least with the main character, it's like, oh yeah, especially like Stardew Valley. You can marry any of the men or the women, doesn't matter. And so at that point, how do you pair them off? Do you just go like all hetero? Do you go all homo? Or do you go all like some random mix of the two? And that would be kind of a nightmare to program. But I miss it and I want it back. I want to marry my friends to my friends. It sounds like a fun little
This is a weird fantasy that you have, Karch.
But I want it.
That's the part that you want of the open world, is just to be able to...
No, this is how I got to the open world. And then I was like, well, we could just make Harvest Moon bigger. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but give me open world Harvest Moon. Doesn't have to be Harvest Moon specifically, but the idea of being a fantasy farm sim, not a real farm sim. I don't want to make this realistic, but I want a bigger scope. Like maybe you do a little bit less day to day because you've played or at least seen people play games like these, so you're very involved with every minute detail of your farm. You till the soil, you plant the seeds, you feed the cows, etc. Maybe like early on you get people to help you, or you find tools that automate some of that so you can focus on whatever the open world aspect is. I don't know.
Dude, you know what would be really cool now that you're talking about it?
Yeah.
Is if you kind of had like this open world fantasy farm thing, but it was a little bit like Astroneer. In that you could go and like get different resources to build up farming equipment to then streamline your production.
That would be cool, but you're just throwing it out there, but it can't lose the charm that the game has with its characters and its setting. You can't, because Astroneer is in the complete opposite direction where there's none of that.
Right? I'm saying like you got to make it in the style, but just the fact that. How do you make it bigger and still make it fun? Well, you'd have to add an element of streamlining some of those processes. So maybe it's not that. Maybe it's that you have to go find resources and then sell them in town to buy equipment or whatever it is.
Yeah. In that same vein, if you don't make it bigger, like if you don't make it wider, make it deeper. So Harvest Moon always like, and the games like it, they always last like 3 quote unquote years, like in-game years. And one of them tried to get fancy with it once. It was called A Wonderful Life, and it like did the whole lifespan. So like after a year, it would jump ahead like 3 years, and after 2 more years, it would jump ahead like 10 years, and eventually you die. Like the main character dies of old age in the end, which is something
depressing.
It is actually. They try to make it seem like poetic, but at the end of the day, it's just like, I just died. And I couldn't stop it. Like, you can't. Like, you die of old age. It's not like, it's nothing bad. It's just what happens because it's called Oh Wonderful Life.
That's too close to real life, man.
And it doesn't pan out. The game's not very good. It deviates too far from the formula, but I would like for them to try something like that again. Go deeper. Make it a longer process. Don't just be like, and you raise the farm up in 4 seconds and you win. Da-da. So, anyway. Good question, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Well, that was a meaty episode. I mean, I guess it's actually not that much longer than a normal one for us.
No, we spent a lot of... You're probably looking at a timestamp. It's because we spent so much time not recording.
Yeah, I know. That's my fault. But it's fine. It's fine. Oh, yeah, I'm hearing that sweet, sweet cup clanking on the table noise. But I don't hear any ice, free iced coffee.
It's pretty much melted.
Man.
I've been topping off the iced coffee or the cold brew with water, like as my cup, just... That
sounds awful.
It isn't because I do... Well, maybe it is. I like it, but like I don't do it... Like, so I and now we're really done. I drink like 3/4 of it and I put a little water in it. And it's still super strong, so it's not that big a deal. And then by the time all the ice is melted, like I'm already accustomed to that taste. Like I wouldn't drink it like this out the get-go, but...
Sure. You're like when you boil a frog alive and they don't know that they're dying slowly.
It's a myth, but exactly like that idea, yes.
They're accustomed to the increase in terribleness.
I like ice in my drink, partially because it keeps it cold, but also I kind of like the disgusting watery soda you have at the bottom of a McDonald's cup.
You are a monster. Okay, everybody. No, I'm cutting Karch off. Be quiet. We're not going to call milkshake. No, we're not calling Greg because I called him 3 times a day and he didn't answer. So he loses his privilege of being called. I'm cutting Karch off because I'm sick of hearing about his disgusting drinking practices. That is all we have for this week. Find us at neverfreetoplay.com or patreon.com/neverfreetoplay. Follow us on Twitter. Like our videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You guys have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.
I also like warm beer.
No, you don't.
No, I don't. But you have to put that at the end because it's really funny.
Okay. I will. What? You're a freak, man.